Don't mind my hand going in the bag of chips.
He was the wizard of 1,000 kings, and I chanced to meet him one night wandering. He told me tales, and he drank my wine. Me and my magic man.
All right, so that's about as much of that as we can play without having to pay for it.
You're right. Heaps awesome.
Yeah, I don't know why I decided to start the show with that, just because it was cool. Because we were kind of playing around with the ideas of playing music clips and talking about it and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Well,
We did talk about that, didn't we?
And I forgot the name of the band before we started.
No, you had a problem spelling it.
So what's going on with you, man?
Oh, you know me. Same old, doing the music thing.
Yeah, tell the people what's going on with that.
Oh, nothing really new. I mean, still kind of just playing around, working with ideas, trying to get a second album finished in the works, and been working with a little side project.
Shout out the name if anybody doesn't know.
Oh, that's the thing, was we don't actually have a name yet,
okay.
and it's still in its infancy, as it were.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a fun thing to pass the time, and get out the creative juices, as it were.
That's always a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, outside of that, though, I mean, I always freelance with any other groups. But I mean, it really all depends, actually. I should kind of highlight that. I mean, it depends on really what they're into. If they're trying to kind of ride the wave of, like, pop genre, then I don't know. I can't get into that.
Yeah, pop genre.
Yeah, and that, it's kind of funny because things that we used to things that we considered like underground and outlandish and totally like anti-norm has now become main staples of pop culture.
Yeah.
They've become their own little sub-pop genres.
Like, I never thought cybergoth would be a thing.
Yeah,
Think about that. Think about those two genres meeting each other. It's very strange.
That shit actually makes me laugh my butt off. But hey, it is what it is. I mean,
it's like, when we were growing up, we were like skaters, punks, what else, like.
Yeah, I mean, the things that, you couldn't listen to in school, like, back without getting chastised by so many people. I mean, you had heavy metal, you had punk rock, and, you had alternative, but even in the 90s, alternative had its own, like, wave of popularity. But
So try not to chew into the mic, guys. I just got the munchies.
Nothing wrong with chips.
Go ahead.
But think about this, though, that nowadays you have, like, heavy metal bands that get just as much airplay now as, like, pop groups used to get back in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
And it's really an interesting kind of like a turnaround. Because shit, like back in the day, like bands like Amon Amarth,
Hell yeah.
So
good call out on that one.
They had they're really great bands, but they have videos.
Arch Enemy.
Yeah,
Arch
Enemy.
That just pops into my head when you mentioned like Kitty. Like when I think about metal, I go all over the place. Like I think metal has gotten really soft. Like, cause like when you and I got into metal, you're looking at like Cannibal Corpse, Pantera. Like the definition for metal now seems a lot softer. But also got to look back to like Iron Maiden and stuff like that too.
Right. Well, the thing is, you look at the dynamic really of the subject content. And that's really where I kind of think metal took its turn, is that, the dark connotations, they're very there, they're there in the beginnings, and they stay out through the 90s. And then at some point after the millennia, the generation that kind of fell into making that as popular as it is now kind of added this undertone of emo, for lack of a better term. I mean, and that's where I kind of got off the trolley, is that the music itself is still good as far as the instrumentals. There's a lot of great developments that came about with that. But as far as heavy metal's concerned, I really don't think that a song, being completely revolved around an ex-girlfriend dumping you for some guy, and then you're all sad and angry, and you're not, it's not even that they're saying that to close it off with a rise, They make the entire subject content of just that loop of, I'm alone, I'm sad, but I'm going to scream it out. And,
So you're still talking about on the vein of emo, right?
Yeah. And
okay.
that's why I don't think metal is what it used to be. But you have like really good bands out there that kind of stick true to the content of aggression, and that's I mean, that's kind of really what I always thought it should be, is like raw, just something that you have to vent out your emotions through it. And there are bands that are able to pull it off in a way that it's not revolved around the depressive side of it. It's like it has its arch of, it starts off, okay, this happened and now I'm sad.
Yeah.
But then the build up towards the middle of the song where he starts to build up that anger, that relentlessness of, I don't want to feel this way. And then in the end it closes off either with they've risen above it and they're happy and they're moving on, or they've risen above it and they've taken their revenge.
Or swearing their revenge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a good rise to it, to where it doesn't have to come back down at the end of the song to where, but I'm sad anyways, and then you have your end chord and then ring out with this poor little kid with short hair covered in tattoos.
All the way up to his eyeballs.
Sulking, under a spotlight. It's like, okay, we get it.
And he's only the secondary singer because the other singer is a deathcore singer.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, too.
Yeah. So, like, for me, like, why I brought that up is like, my thing is I'll never get away from how much I love the sound of, like, 90s. I know I'm going to catch flashback for this, but, like, 90s new metal and, There's other, like, I really love black metal and stuff like that, but like bands like Primer 55, I used to like Disturbed. Their shit sucks after the first album. Static X, Cold Chamber, that's my favorite music.
Yeah, and I can be hip with that. I'm hip,
and I'm really particular. Mudvayne, but like I'm really particular because like I like the sound of metal for me. The one that I like is the genre that I just explained.
Right.
Like, that's the way I like my metal to sound.
Right.
I hate sing. Like, if I'm going to listen to metal, I don't want to hear singing. I want to fucking hear metal.
Right. But even then, there's some bands that can actually pull it off. And
that is true. That is true.
But
Slipknot does that.
Yeah, right. But the key is that you don't make it overbearing, and you don't make it such a common staple of every single song that people get burned out on.
You remember Spineshank?
Oh, yeah.
They were good. They were like our industrial version of Deftones.
Right. And Deftones was never a band I could get into.
I really loved their first, like, 3 albums. And I might be doing my math wrong, but then White Pony came out, and that's when Chino stopped screaming.
Oh, I remember that album.
Like, he did a really great song with Maynard from Tool, but you have to be a Tool fan to enjoy that song. Like
that's kind of the funny thing. Most people would then be in it for Tool rather than Deftones.
Yeah. Like, because like Around the Fur came out, and like, you know me. You remember that time with me, dude? I was fucking spiked hair, metalhead, fucking louder, heavy, and then like not Around the Fur, but that song House of Flies or whatever. I'm like, going back to school. I'm like, what, Chino, what happened? And then you read into it later, he just stopped doing heroin.
Well, there you go.
I hope not all metal's fucking forged on heroin.
Well, dude, that's
a lot of it.
That's the thing, is there's like music in general is forged on drugs of various kinds, and it doesn't even have to be the illicit kind. That's kind of the funny thing, is that there are bands that are revolved just around things like coffee to get them through it. I mean,
think about bands like Cottonmouth Kings. Their whole
weed.
I don't even think they're making albums anymore. But
they're doing their own separate things. I think Richter
Johnny Richter was one of my favorites, man. Johnny Richter's awesome.
I don't know if D-Lo. I think last I heard, D-Lo has like a some kind of bike shop or something like a motocross shop. Yeah, I don't know though.
He had some
quote me on that.
He had some personal trouble with his kid. Like, I don't know the particulars. I just, people that I know mentioned, like, I don't know. But yeah, bands like that used to be like, to this day, it's what I enjoy the most. But I'm really open to new stuff, like the band Avatar that I've showed you from Sweden.
Yeah.
Those guys are just Swedish black metal, and that's badass, and I love it.
You see, but that's the thing for me when it comes to music. It's so difficult for me, and I've said this so many times, especially on this show, is that it's difficult for me to get into new music because it doesn't have that same quality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are bands that do.
I
come
get
out,
what you mean. I get what you mean. Yeah.
There are quite a few bands that have.
It's like the craftsmanship is not as much there,
right? Or the form they try to modify the formula, a general formula of the genre, and kind of try to write off that. You know, it's kind of like what kids did, like a little bit after the grunge movement died out in the late mid '90s. You know, you had bands like Silverchair coming out.
Silverchair was awesome.
You know, and don't get me wrong,
Frog Stomp.
I have that album, and I think it's a good album. But what I thought was funny is that it arrived at a time that with genres that reach popularity, when you have bands that come out, you have industries that go headhunting for bands that will literally just ride the coattails of what the band is. They'll follow a look or a sound.
Yeah.
And that's really where I see with metal is that they'll try to write, they'll use what they consider to be a generalized formula of drop D,
down toning.
Exactly, power chord progressions at 210 BPM. And screaming, trying to make yourself either sound like an angry cookie monster or a male banshee. I
actually listened. I didn't mean to cut you off. Finish your thought. Well, I listened to last podcast, and I'll have big shout out, guys. They were explaining like Norwegian black metal and stuff, and explaining where like the metal sound, or of course, to the uninitiated, it actually developed in Sweden and moved its way this way because it actually was like a Masonic thing. It's like it was actually to dispel spirits, and that worked its way into its folk music, and like, but that's at its core. Like I'm talking out my ass.
Or are you talking about
the scream?
Oh, okay. Are you talking about like that guttural growl?
Like it's like from what I understand, like I said, talking out my ass, like that's where it kind of came from. It was a ritual to dispel, like in ritual song to dispel spirits, to be strong and intimidating.
You see, something like that I could see, and I'm one of the people that definitely believes that as far as heavy metal's concerned, it began in Britain. I really think that's it's a truism.
You thinking like Iron Maiden?
Well, like Sabbath,
Sabbath,
Sabbath, Judas Priest, cats like that. But that's a British thing, and we of course adopt it, and like we do with so many other things when it comes to music, is that if it comes from somewhere else, we bring it into here, integrate it with our population, and then we respin it into something else, which then becomes popular in the original country that it came from. I think, and what I think, I just find that so ass hilarious.
Ass hilarious. That's a new word. Ass hilarious.
Ass hilarious.
Dude, fist bump. I'm gonna hashtag this ass hilarious.
Ass hilarious.
I don't know. We're gonna have to work out how we're gonna spell that, but. Continue. I just got excited about it.
Ass hilarious.
I got something really cool.
Take out the H.
I got something really cool to show you once I get through the ad here. Like, I'm not going to tell you what this is. I'm sure you've heard it because you're a lot into music. I just want you to tell me if you've heard this and what you think. Of course, I'm going to fast forward a little bit so we can actually play it.
Was it Jonathan Davis?
Listen to this. I don't care if we get pulled for this. I want you to hear this.
You say that now.
Well, I can always dub it down. Listen to this fucking chorus, dude. What do you think about that, man?
Sounds good.
Like it gets really heavy, but he finally got back into metal. He hasn't done. They haven't done like metal singing in like the last like 5 albums.
Well, the whole thing. I don't know.
Other than his like hardcore bebop.
I mean, I liked Korn and Jonathan Davis for that. Like maybe the first 2 albums they put out, and then
I've always been a big fan.
See, that was the thing, is I kind of dropped out of it because I saw how I mean, and that's kind of the weird thing about me when it comes to music is if it jumps popularity way too quick, I tend to kind of drop out of it because then all of a sudden something that I liked is now all around me and I can't help but be bombarded by it. And that's like kind of like what happened with the Deadpool movie. Oddly enough, so many people were
so good. They're just good.
I mean, so many people were telling me you gotta see, you gotta see, you gotta see.
I can't say you gotta see it, but it's good, man.
But then also all the merchandising, all the media attention, everything that went with it is what really dissuaded me towards wanting to actually watch it. And that's the part that kind of pisses me off. It's like I love Deadpool. I love the character of Deadpool. I remember following him back in the early years when he was just considered a straight anti-hero slash villain.
He was comic relief.
Mm-hmm. And so after that, I was like, okay, fuck that. Same thing with music and most things. If it's too popular too fast, there's a reason.
I was that way with Game of Thrones. Everybody tells me I'm horrible for not finishing it, but I just didn't.
Well, you're not really missing much as far as the ending goes.
Well, I already know. Like I know everybody I know watches it. I already know what happens.
Right. And the thing was, I mean, for me, it was just something to watch. I wasn't like, I had to be there to watch it or anything like that. If I missed it, oh well, I know at some point somebody's gonna release it to DVD, and I'll just buy it then and watch it on my own goddamn time.
That makes we were talking earlier. That makes me want to go to The Witcher and how awesome it fucking was.
Oh yeah, and that's a great series. I would definitely recommend it, but I'm not gonna say, oh, it's something you have to see.
I'm like the audience out there knows that I'm obsessed with the series called The Expanse, and the book in particular. Yeah. And they've made some new seasons on TV, and there's a new one on Amazon. Amazon actually bought the series, which is really cool.
Fucking Bezos.
Yeah, but I haven't watched it yet because I watched like with my girlfriend. I've been watching Life in Pieces, which is really great. Have you ever seen that show?
Mm-mm.
It's a really interesting take at a sitcom to where it's the family's called the Shorts, and each episode starts with 4 shorts of the family, some play on words of 4 short stories, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So like it's like 18 minutes of 4 different stories, and it's pretty hilarious. Like they just bring it together really quick and make a joke.
Word.
It's pretty funny. But I wanted to talk to you about the new Joker, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I only saw like a few snippets of the movie, and from what I saw and from some of the interviews and stuff with Joaquin Phoenix that I've seen, I actually really
I think he won an Oscar or an Emmy or something.
Yeah, he won an Oscar for it, and deservingly so. I mean, from the parts that I saw, it's a really good delve into not even like what people have done in the past with Joker as far as making him like over the top psychotic, feral almost.
Yeah, and I have a lot of input here, but I want you to finish your thought.
Like he has, they present a dynamic of his, basically his fall from grace, quote unquote, and in a very, what's the way I should put it?
Because you and I love this character.
Oh, indeed. And they present it in such a dramatic way to where you empathize with the villain rather than just condemning him. You already know that he's going to do some twisted fucking shit at some point in his life or at some point just even in the movie. But the way you see him get to that point gives him more of a personal quality.
It makes him more physical.
Yeah, people can identify with that more, and especially nowadays with the amount of mental illness that goes around. That people are born with to deal with every single day, ranging everything from bipolar disorder to clinical depression to paranoid schizophrenia. And there's so many more things that they're finding out about the human brain, and some of the things that even back in the day that people used to, downplay as just being quirky or whatever, are now being considered as very, very serious mental deficiencies.
Yes.
And
I connected a lot with this movie, and
I did too, actually.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your stream of thought.
Oh, no, it's all good. But the scene that, the one that rang out with me the most, oddly enough, and there's probably a few people out there say, oh yeah, just because it's so, flash in the pan or not flash in the pan, just, flashy and overly mediated. is the scene where he kills Murray on live TV.
Mm-hmm.
Is the lead up
He
to
and he
that.
asks him to call him the Joker.
Did he?
That's how that works in the movie. Like real up top, as long as you're okay,
Yeah.
there'll be spoilers. And,
No, I don't. I'm gonna see it anyways
okay,
at some
so
point.
just as long as it's okay for spoilers, just spoiler alert. If you guys don't want any spoilers, just keep skipping.
Plug your ears.
Just keep skipping till you don't hear the word Joker anymore. But go ahead and continue. Oh no, I was continuing.
You were gonna continue.
Yes. The whole thing is that Joaquin Phoenix Joker did a stand up. Okay, so in the movie, his whole thing is he has that condition to where when he's nervous he laughs.
Yeah.
So he does a stand up routine that's actually recorded and broadcast on TV where he can't stop laughing and he fucks his jokes up. So his Robert De Niro's character has like a talk show like Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
And he's like, he plays it and makes fun of him. He's like, look at this Joker, look at this Joker, look at this Joker.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And the movie plays out and he gets invited onto the show, like just as a character. And he says like, okay, I'm going to dress up and call me the Joker. Call me Joker. And he has this amazing monologue right before he shoots him. And like, so I'm just going to open the fucking can of worms. Like I have, you and I both deal with mental illness.
Yeah.
In one way or another.
Well, that's the thing. I think we all do to a degree, but there's some of us, like myself and like yourself, who have specific types that are a little bit more domineering than what most people have.
Yeah. Like, well, for me, the main one that really started. Do you remember in 2006 when I got hit by a car?
Yeah.
And I've been actually, I'm not very open with this, but I've actually been going to therapy every Wednesday for a long time, and been like getting brain scans and stuff like that.
Right.
Like this is a very wrong way to say this, but I show stuff that is comparable to CTE. It's not. I can't say I have CTE. Like, there's no way to tell that until you dissect the brain.
Right.
But I'm showing signs. Like short temper, memory loss, just weird ass shit. So, and it sucks. But every couple months I get my brain scanned. Anybody out there didn't realize that I'm crazy? I'm crazy.
Crazy is as crazy does.
Crazy is
man.
as crazy does.
I mean, I got my things that I deal with. I don't really, you could write it. You can make a list on a roll of toilet paper and still need another roll. But it's something that I could really identify with on not just a personal level, but also a little bit more broader. That it also taps on social levels. Because a lot of what I saw in that movie, even for the clips that I saw, it really resonated with the way the world reacts, the way our nation reacts. But that's it's a political thing. But the whole movie, from what I saw, the whole movie looks really
It's
fucking
amazing.
awesome.
It's amazing. And here, another big spoiler alert. Okay, so when he shoots Robert De Niro. There's this huge, because there's been this gang of people calling themselves the Jokers, wearing masks, whatever. You guys look at that. But when he shoots Robert De Niro, he gets arrested. They put him in a cop car and they drive away, and then the cop car gets T-boned by people wearing Joker masks.
Yep.
And then they show the movie theater showing Zorro.
Yeah, and then Thomas Wayne and Martha are coming out.
Yeah, I was like,
Or no, Thomas Wayne. What was his mom's name?
Martha. Yeah.
Was it Martha?
Yeah.
Huh.
Just like Martha Kent.
Yeah, that's why I was like, wait a minute, did I just misquote?
Yeah, but all in all, I thought it was an amazing. Like, he deserved any award that he got for that.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
like
even though his acceptance speech was a little weird.
well, like his solo scenes where he was on his own. Like, my favorite scene from the entire movie is just about to get fired because he had a gun. And then he gets called into the office and he's buttoning up his jacket and he's just walking down the hallway laughing.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh fuck. Like, that's me, but I go the other direction. I like get debilitated nervous. In the movie, he's on the bus and he's laughing and he's got these cards, like because he can't explain himself because he's laughing, so he hands these cards out and says, "I'm sorry." The cards say, like, "I'm sorry. This is I have this problem," or whatever. Like, it's just shot amazingly.
Right.
I forget what year it takes place in. But there's the whole thing that really makes him snap in the movie is he is led to believe that he's Bruce Wayne's brother.
Huh.
Yeah, it's just it's this whole thing where
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember seeing like a clip of that because his mom, as she's dying, he goes to pay. Like he finds out,
Yeah.
he steals her medical file,
yeah.
and then he pays Thomas Wayne a visit. Yeah. You see, I actually kind of liked the dynamic in that movie because it paints Thomas Wayne in a different light, rather
sleazeball.
Yeah, because a lot of people, like especially through the comics, they see Bruce Wayne's dad, and they present his dad as this kindly father figure who looks after people, is the pillar of the community. You know, basically the class act of all Gotham.
Just like Tony Stark's dad. What's his name?
Fuck if I know. I don't like Iron Man.
Okay, we'll move on then. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, okay. For the nerds out there,
it's all good. It's all good.
You know,
we like what we like.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Bruce Wayne. Tony Stark is a little bit too much of a douche, particularly when it came to the outing of Peter Parker.
Yeah.
That kind of put the nail in the coffin. All right, you're just a dick.
What do you think about Batman versus Leonardo from the Turtles?
I could see that happening, but the thing is with
because they've been in comics together.
Oh yeah, but then again though, Batman is one of those ones that's hard to beat because of so much that all the things that he knows. You know,
that's the thing. That's the thing. It's because I'm Batman. Like if somebody asks you a question and you respond with because I'm Batman with enough confidence, they're gonna be like, all right.
Well, like I don't know, man, and that's kind of
that's pretty silly, but yes.
Batman is one of those heroes that is really hard to beat, especially when you.
It's because the way he's written and designed.
Exactly, is when you can, and especially when you confine it to something like hand-to-hand combat. Dude. You know, I mean, if you were to go that route, if you were to straight just put it into a hand-to-hand fight, you would literally have to put him up against somebody like Lobo or Deadpool.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And almost basically impervious characters.
Well, I feel like Batman would be smart enough if he had a second chance. If he had to realize that maybe he would have to disintegrate Deadpool's genes at Superpower Beatdown did that.
Right.
Yeah, like Joker had an acid that would dissolve Deadpool at a molecular level.
But that's the thing though. But that's adding an outside element.
Exactly. You're right.
If you're putting it just into a fist fight,
hand to hand,
you know that's
So do you subscribe to the camp that Batman knows all known martial arts styles?
I don't think he would.
Because I remember in the OG comic. Well, I can't say OG. Like late '80s, early '90s, it was 32 styles.
Well, you think about this too. Bruce Wayne had X amount of time in his young years to learn what he learned before he became Batman. Mm. Now, after he becomes Batman, I would be
I wouldn't be surprised if he created styles.
Well, exactly. And then not to mention that I'm sure that after he becomes Batman, he learns several more styles, creates some styles, utilizes, a Jeet Kune-do-esque form of his own.
Jeet Kune-do, Wing Chun, Krav Maga, Hapkido.
But
maybe not Krav Maga because that's kind of new.
But to say that he knows it all,
impossible.
That is a hard thing to say because, I mean, granted, Batman's a timeless character, but throughout his adventures and all the things that he does and all the supervillains he thwarts, where the hell does he get the time to learn all this shit?
Yeah.
I mean, I could see him studying various diagrams, working out the scenarios in his head, and then implementing them almost in a trial by fire scenario. That's feasible. But if he was to learn every single martial art known to mankind, that requires...
It's just impossible.
Yeah,
it's just impossible. That's why I asked the question.
Like, no man in a lifetime could achieve something like that. You could really make a good dent. I would definitely say that, but I really don't think that you can.
Well, I guarantee you there's tiny old tribes of Irish cultures that had their own martial art.
No, right.
You know what I'm saying? But so that's why let's give it the benefit of the doubt. We'll go with the 90s description of 32 styles. Okay, he's Batman. Okay, 32 styles.
Right.
So I think that he'd be at 32 styles. I think he'd be adaptable to anything that somebody would throw at you. There's only so many ways the body can move.
Exactly. But then again, though, I mean, what I think a really wise way to approach martial arts is the same way you would approach a buffet.
There you go.
Take what you want and leave the rest.
Well, you know what I love? You know, the Wing Chun, the Wing Chun Jeet Kune Do, that's what I love. And Jiu-Jitsu.
Right.
Like, Jiu-Jitsu, like, takes all, like, say, you know, you have to say that it goes to the ground, but a skilled Jiu-Jitsu master will take you to the ground every time.
Mm.
You know, like, Jiu-Jitsu, like, you might think you're a tough guy and you have no training, you get manhandled.
Right.
Like, I remember my very first Jiu-Jitsu class got choked the fuck out.
Mm. Oh shit! Even Ed O'Neill, man, Al Bundy himself does jujitsu.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yeah, and R.I.P. to Randy Bourdain. He black belted like in record time.
Right.
Record time. Like who? Just because it's on my mind right now. Like we were talking about earlier, we really don't know a lot of fighters offhand.
Mm.
Who piqued your interest that you took notice of?
As far as are you
A name that's stuck in your head? You're like, oh, that guy's good.
in like UFC
anything,
or
anything.
Oh well, the names that always stand out in my mind when it comes to professional fighting of any kind is mainly in boxing, because that's the one that I used to really follow the most.
Yeah,
And especially, growing up, because we were kids of the 80s, you had boxing that came on Friday and Saturday nights.
Saturday nights, yeah.
So that was something to watch, and this was long before UFC was even a thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we got to see that, and that's really where I kind of fell in. And then the more I learned about it, and then when I started practicing it myself, I got to really appreciate the sport of it. And that's when I started learning about boxers like, Julio Cesar Chavez,
Nice.
De La Hoya, Tyson, Marvin Hagler. I mean, even the old schoolers like Liston. Of course, you have Muhammad Ali. There's just a plethora of really awesome boxers out there. But that's just me.
Boxing is really big in the Irish culture too.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
I grew up the stuff that I watched was my grandpa was really obsessed with like the old black and white boxing films, and I forget the guy's name. And this makes me feel really bad, but he was African American, and the whole thing, he always wore cut off jeans. And he just beat the crap out of everybody. And I just can't remember. And he's famous. And it just makes me feel bad. I don't remember his name.
Right. Well, but then again, though, especially around that time,
I can't remember an Irish boxer.
Yeah, there's a slew of extremely talented and champion-worthy fighters out there.
There's it right there. There's an Irish martial art, pugilism.
Yeah, exactly.
And the whole thing with pugilism, you're not supposed to dodge. You're supposed to just take it.
Well, I think there is a little bit of a bob and weave that is permitted.
Well, here's the thing: is this African American guy that I was talking about was beating all these Irish boxers because they wouldn't dodge, and he would dodge.
Oh, maybe they just didn't think he had the gumption to knock him out. You never know.
He fucking laid them out.
For a fact there was whiskey involved. Oh, yeah, so I mean, that's right. Confidence could be a little bit off skew.
Yeah, and this was this is when it wasn't good to be a black celebrity,
right?
But that drives me crazy. I can't remember his name.
But I mean, like, oh God. It was kind of funny. We were talking about earlier. I mean, I went to see our friend from high school, Dusty Thurn, go.
Oh yeah, speaking of fighters.
Yeah, I mean, I went to go see him fight.
We got to tag him on this.
Yeah, definitely. I got to go see him fight. I mean, that kid can throw down, man. I got to see it was all in traditional Muay Thai style.
Oh,
which is another one of my favorites, kickboxing from Thailand. It's really awesome.
If you're not initiated with Thai kickboxing, give them a quick explanation of the art of the 8 limbs.
Well, I mean, essentially, it's utilizing your limbs in. It's all strikes. I mean, they have like certain takedowns that they use, but a lot of it is broad kicking into. We can take out your legs, your arms, your midsection.
The shin kicks are particularly impressive.
Yeah, and it's a lot of training and conditioning when it comes to nerve reception. A lot of deadening of the nerves in the laterals and also in the obliques and the shins. A lot of elbow usage, and it's a very ancient style. It's actually, I can't off the top of my head remember how long it.
Well, and they start studying super early in life too.
Mm-hmm. Well, the earlier the better, because you can get your hamstrings and all that stuff, your body conditioned to it a lot easier than you would if you did it at an older age. But not to say that it's impossible. It just takes more time and a lot more concentration.
I always call boxing the art of punching.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing about boxing too that I personally liked. Once I started learning the biological science behind it, of the serious emphasis in the punching power itself.
Dude, yeah.
And I mean, I've seen, I can't remember. I think it was Fight Science.
Yeah,
when they
Fight
did
Science, so good.
When they did the comparison of which style has the strongest the strongest
It's
punch.
boxing, it's American boxing.
Yeah, and because that is literally your striking tool. That's where all it's confined. And not to say you also have leg work and things like that, which are obviously extremely important as well. But I mean, you can't kick.
The discipline of Muay Thai has always impressed me.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a wonderful style. And I got to see actually quite a few fights that night because he wasn't the main card, but he was very close to it. So we got to see a lot of the undercard fights.
Nice.
And that was really cool to watch.
Yeah, so when we post this episode, we'll tag Dusty on Facebook and all that stuff. Like, just shout out, watch, like, go see his fights whenever he's out there. Go check him out.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know what I actually appreciated the most though, aside from his fight, is watching a lot of the undercards. Some of these guys, the
newcomers, the people that are trying to prove something.
Right, and then you could tell, the ones that were really they knew the style, but they didn't know how to put it together inside of the ring. Because
they haven't been doing it since they were 5,
or just the fact that they're not used to such a confined art either. There's so many variables. But what I thought was kind of cool was the ones that put on the best shows and showed the most, like for lack of a better term, gusto, were the ladies. There was a few female fights that night, and they put on the best show because they were beating the shit out of each other. They were very coordinated in their strikes.
More technical.
They really put themselves into it, as opposed to some of these other guys that were just kind of they're bulky as shit,
just throwing their weight around.
Yeah, well, I mean, not like fat, but like built like a they were built and very muscular, but they were kind of just broad swinging, throwing wild kicks here and there, and it's like, okay, then they come into the ring with this
bravado.
Very egotistical form of pageantry for themselves, and you can tell that. At least I could, that some of those fights were just going to be like, okay, this guy is really cocky as shit. He doesn't really seem like he's into it. So, and then more often than not, those same guys were the ones that were getting knocked out or losing by decisions, and things like that.
I got something here. I found him. I want to play this for you.
Round 12 was all Jack Johnson. In round 13, it appeared as though the police were going to step in and stop the fight as a result of Burns' weakened condition and the terrible beating he was taking. Here in round 14, Johnson rushes in, lands an uppercut, 3 left hooks, a tremendous barrage of punches, lefts and rights which have Burns helpless. At this very moment, in the early seconds of round 14, the police shut off the motion picture cameras and stepped into the ring, awarding the heavyweight championship of the world.
See, that's so cool. Like, we don't have fighters like that anymore. Fucking 14 rounds or whatever he was saying.
That's all. I mean, was it? There are some professional fights that go up, 12. I think 12 rounds is the max.
How long did Merriweather and McGregor go?
Oh, fuck if I know. Anything involving...
I watched it, but I don't remember a thing about it.
Well, that's the thing, is that anything involving either of the two, it just really dissuades me. I don't like Mayweather as far as him trying to pose himself off as a legitimate boxer. I mean, he's got the financial...
He just runs away.
Well, it's not even much of that. Is that he's become a businessman as opposed to being an actual athlete. He knows, I mean, and that's the thing, is that dude knows how to make his money. I will not contest that one bit. But as far as the actual, the practice of being able to knock a quality boxer out, that is where I think he doesn't have it anymore. But then again, though, I mean, that's kind of the thing, is when you find yourself in a position that he is that this is something he's going to ride until he dies. But how he does it now is what he has to adapt to and to change. So instead of being, the one punch, knockout king, he now has to play more of a Don King type of role of promotion of not just of the sport, but mainly of himself, to really kind of flood it out there to make people see him, to remember his name, be like, oh, okay, well, that's Mayweather. We know him. He's won a couple of titles in his time. So, that's the guy that we're going to want to see, whether or not he actually wins. And so with all that, I mean, it's I don't know. I don't really consider him much of a boxer anymore. I just consider him more of a professional businessman.
Last thing I saw him do was McGregor.
And with McGregor, I mean, there's another fall from grace. I mean, that guy, had a very awesome career, with mixed martial arts and the whatnot, and then he gets into this weird, thing with promoting his businesses and his whiskey, and then turning
he makes suits too,
right, and then turning his personality on screen and in the ring into this weird kind of like WWE, wrestler. I mean, he's
like a heel,
right? I mean, it's kind of like, what the hell, dude? I mean, if you wanted to be a wrestler, just cut your
that's what Rousey did.
Yeah, cut your career here, go be a fucking wrestler. Do whatever you want. I mean, but don't try to integrate these theatrics into, UFC, even though I think UFC in itself
throwing that fucking chair in the bus.
Yeah,
and
and that's exactly what I was talking about. And, that type of thing is just, it doesn't help you at all. And I think in some cases there is such a thing as bad publicity, because at that point, people are going to remember you.
Yeah.
But they're going to remember you for being an asshole, not all the fucking victories you had or some of the good things you may have done. I mean, that's
you leave a mark. It does make a difference.
Yeah, and that's the thing about like media attention, is that, especially in the United States, is that you fuck up and people hear about it. Guess what? I mean, you're marred with that for the rest of your career and the rest of your life, depending on how famous you are.
Look at Charlie Sheen with all the tiger blood.
Yeah, right. I mean,
I still like Charlie Sheen though. He just got crazy for a while.
Yeah, and then there's some levels that hey, okay, he was wild for a while, and now he seems to be doing all right. He's doing good things, and then people can appreciate you at that point. It's kind of like the weird aspect of it, is that people will like you after you've been through the shit, and you
Gary Busey.
Yeah, and you can show them that, hey, I fucked up, but I am making a difference.
Well, look at Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
He went to jail for some kind of addiction, and then now he's who people see as Iron Man.
Right, and that's cool. I mean, and that's awesome that people can do that. I mean, anyone can. It's just, what I just kind of, I guess I get jaded with people like McGregor and Mayweather for what they do. But hey, whatever. I mean, people got to make their money. Yeah. So I mean, you do what you do, and if I don't care for it, don't try to be my buddy.
Like, I was big on Rousey, like when on her heyday, because I was just like, you never, like, UFC ain't been around for a while, but like in all the women's divisions, you never saw somebody finishing matches so quickly.
Right.
Like, so I jumped on the bandwagon, then thing is, like, she got a big head, and they put her against somebody. Holly Holm, I think was the one.
Yeah, Holly Holmes knocked her out.
Yeah, and so it's like she set this bar to where the other female fighters are like, okay, like, I can't say in their heads that, okay, Ronda Rousey's finishing fights this quickly. I can't say that. But you look at like competitors like Holly Holm. Like, I don't know the exact stats, but she's got like kickboxing titles and shit like that.
And she's a striker, and that was Rousey's weak spot,
because she was a bulldog.
She's very ground and pound.
Yeah, but the thing is if she got you down with like a judo hold, or I think judo is what she did. But she was solid. She was in the Olympics.
Yeah,
if she grabbed you, she grabbed you.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm not trying to say that she's not qualified, but that at the same token, it's that when you have a fighter that becomes a champion,
and goes to their head.
And also it affects them in other degrees. I mean, I remember hearing rumors that she had issues with legality issues with the UFC and Dana White and all that fun stuff. But at the same time, a lot of fighters, especially in something as variable or varied as mixed martial arts, once you get on top, now you have to study more. You have to look at all these fighters that are going to be coming for your title. So instead of doing like spending your time at photo ops and PR events, those are good for your career. They're really nice.
But your career's gonna suck if you don't win.
Yeah, when you get to the top of the mountain, you get soft because you're not climbing anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
So make the climb now. Instead of making the climb your struggle, now at this point you have to look all around the top of the mountain to see who's climbing up after you.
Yeah.
Learn what they do, learn their weaknesses, learn their strengths, learn them as a person. If you can put yourself in the head of your opponent, you have got it.
That's Muhammad Ali. That was his whole thing.
Exactly. And that's why champions, real champions, never give up studying the art, the passion. And the ones that get involved with the frills, bells, and whistles of being a champion, those are the ones that end up losing. And sometimes they lose pretty hard.
Like McGregor is a great example.
Yeah.
I forget who took him down. Was it Diaz? I think it was Diaz.
Yeah, I remember that because they had 2 fights, right?
Yeah, yeah. They got a second fight because he was like, "Oh, I can beat you this time." So, but what else is going on with you?
Well, aside from that, I'm just I was getting ready to move to Seattle within the next year or so.
Nice.
But unfortunately, with this wonderful outbreak of lunacy and viral stupidity, I'm actually going to try to avoid there for a little while until the CDC says, okay, everyone's no longer insane.
Yeah. I took an Uber the other day, and the driver tried to talk to me about it, and I was like, I don't know.
Well, the thing is that, to me, this is just one more key on the chain to freak us out, and it gets dangled in front of us, and we have to react. With this whole coronavirus deal, it can be dangerous depending on how you treat it. And what I think is funny too, a lot of the things that doctors are recommending to people all falls within the common realm of common sense.
Wash your hands.
Wash your fucking hands. I mean, wash your hands. Watch what you touch. If you're touching something grimy and dirty,
think about it.
Or if you're shaking hands with a bunch of people throughout the day, or going to the grocery store and touching what somebody else touched, don't touch your fucking face.
Yeah.
I mean, don't rub your eyes or pick your nose or pick your teeth or whatever the fuck you do to get, to end up catching that shit.
I saw a post from one of my friends that lives in Dublin. Mm-hmm. There was it was a picture of the shelf at a Walmart or something like that, or whatever drugstore. Mm-hmm. All the hand sanitizer was gone.
Oh yeah.
And it said for the sake of something along the lines of everybody getting what they need, that they limited people to 2 hand sanitizers.
Well, and that was the thing. I mean, I actually experienced this myself because of what I do. I'm a maintenance man, so every so often I have to have painter's masks on if I'm either doing something with chemicals and all, that type of stuff. And the 2 biggest locations that I get my supply from were completely sold out.
That's crazy.
And this is these are supply warehouses. This isn't just, Joe's Ace Hardware down the street that's, the size of a small house. I mean, these people were bought out hard from cases and cases of this shit. Crazy. And the part that's so dangerous of it is that it screws the people like myself who use that in their profession. In my case, it's for, maintenance, apartment maintenance. But then you have also medical professionals. Now, granted, they have supplies of their own, but their suppliers...
But they get their supplies come from that.
Yeah. I mean, also their suppliers supply other people. So if that supplier is getting drained out from all these other places that common people have access to, the shipments that come now to hospitals and other emergency rooms and urgent care centers get screwed out.
Yeah.
And that's
crazy.
And that's the dangerous part. These are people that have studied to learn how to save your dumb ass. And because you decided you needed 100 fucking cases of face masks and about 3 barrel drums worth of fucking Purell, now these people are going to get sick. They'll die most likely. And now they can't take care of you because you try to save yourself.
Hey, well, you use enough hand sanitizer, you actually kill your own beneficial flora.
Exactly, and it's just so asinine. I mean, it's ass hilarious. I mean,
It's hilarious.
I just don't get it. And
I think that's going to be the title of this episode, Ass Hilarious.
ass hilarious. I just don't understand. I mean, people can get scared, and that, fear is a legitimate thing to have. I mean, we wouldn't be human if we didn't have fear. We would be able to survive without it.
Yeah.
But when you reach mass hysteria, it's just so uncontrollable that you have the chicken effect. You have a coop of chickens. You put something that looks even like a fox or a weasel or something that threatens them that they can recognize. It can be just a lump of fur in a corner. They're going to freak the fuck out.
It's like cats with cucumbers.
Yeah, I mean, one will see it, and then one will start clucking like mad, and then the other ones will see that one clucking, not understanding why, in its complete, in being completely informed as to why. They just start clucking along with it, and then before you know it, the whole fucking coop is going insane. And it's too dangerous, and people just need to ease up. Watch what they do, wash their hands, be clean. You don't have to fucking douse yourself in Purell. You don't have to wear a face mask 24 fucking hours a day.
It's not SARS.
And just watch what you do.
Well, and saying not SARS might be insensitive, but it's not SARS.
Yeah, I mean, it's not SARS. It's not, it can be just as dangerous as something as the Spanish flu.
Well, that's
in
what
the
I've heard.
1918s.
That's what I've heard it compared to.
Yeah,
And it's got like a 28-day incubation date or something like that. Incubation date.
But the thing that made the Spanish flu dangerous was just the fact that it could spread so fast between people. And people, they, especially back then, I mean, sanitary conditions weren't in the same level as they are now.
Yeah.
So something like that could easily just skyrocket without any warning. But something like this, I mean, we have the capabilities to test for it. We have ways to figure out eventually how to at least cap it off, or contain it long enough to where we can figure out then something to do about it. But, because there's so many things.
There's a dog in the background messing with her collar. Sorry, guys.
We have a jingle dog.
Hey, chill. Thank you.
But, like I was kind of saying earlier, people are scared to face the cost of what it would be to not just to go to the hospital, but to miss work, to
that's the
not be
rough
able
part.
to pay your bills. And say you find yourself in the situation that, maybe like that one case that turned out to be an Uber driver,
Right.
that you have that, and that you don't know if that person has a child with a debilitating disease whose their lives are now dependent on you to get up, get out of bed, and go do your job.
That's a scary thought.
What do you do at that point? You can't just go to little Junior and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Billy. I can't get your medicine today because, well, I've got the coronavirus and I'm going to die too."
That means
so move over. Let's die together.
That means the dad's name is Billy too.
I mean, it's just.
I was trying to be lighthearted on
a little South Park reference there.
Oh no, you said Junior. You said hello, Billy, and then you said Junior.
Oh yeah.
Bad joke. Wah, wah. Go ahead.
But you have something like that, and you know what? And I hate to be the bearer of bad news. There is a much larger amount of people like that that could very well be carrying the virus.
Yeah, like I said,
and are stuck with it.
Yeah.
I mean, shit. If I was to have caught the coronavirus, and I had, my daughter needed me to, provide her with medication,
well, its lethal rate's pretty fucking low.
Well, that's the thing it is low, but it's a lot.
Still,
it's
lethal at all is concerning.
It's lethal if you can't get treated. If you can't get treated, it's lethal, and even if you can, it's still lethal. But I noticed it's being geared more towards the elderly and either all people with pre-existing conditions. If your body's already weakened, then something like that could probably take you out a lot easier than someone who's spry and healthy.
Yeah,
but in either case, though, I mean, regardless, it's just, I don't know, man. It's kind of like one of those things. It's like, okay, everyone just kind of needs to unloosen their sphincters a little bit and realize that the more we slack on this, the more we avoid taking these precautions, it's just going to get worse. And not just on the actual virus itself, but on an economic level. I mean, we're already seeing plummets in the stock markets. We're seeing more travel bans, restrictions, and things like that just revolving around this. Now, that could very well be just a convenient excuse for certain individuals or certain places or things or whatever, but it doesn't negate the fact that, hey, people aren't moving, commerce ain't happening, and we're all going to get screwed.
Yeah, people don't realize that, like, if trucks aren't on the road,
Right?
bringing stuff to your grocery store, bringing gasoline to your gas stations, everything comes to a stop.
Yep. But, and then also we'll say, well, people need to bring this to the attention of the CDC and da-da-da-da-da. But that's another, kettle of fish that involves more than just simple medical professionals and people. It involves a whole nother round of crap. But it is what it is. And, the world has a tendency to release something like this to its population because, well, guess what? It's called checks and balances. I mean, I've always been a believer in the idea that it's always a balancing act, and the world has its own.
It's the circle of life, my friend.
Exactly. And when a population becomes, I mean, you look at, and this is what I'm always going to laugh about is because I love this analogy, is that you look at roaches. You have a house. You live in that house. It's your house. You like your house. You have a couple roaches. You see them every now and then, but they're so rare out of sight that you forget about them. Now these roaches multiply. You might see them a little bit more frequently, but they're still far enough, in between to where you can still forget about them, or at least not consider them as much of a concern. So you go about doing your regular thing as always. Now these roaches have multiplied to a level to where you have no choice but to acknowledge them.
And then you have an infestation.
Yep. And what choice, what's your option after that? Do you just go buy another home, or do you make an attempt to quell this wonderful explosion, populace explosion that has occurred inside of your domicile? I mean, you're most likely going to want to find a way to exterminate them. The world, and I think everything, has a balance like that.
Well,
there's too much of something, it has to be leveled out.
It's like predators and prey, stuff like that.
Exactly. And, too much of something is just, it's it's moderation on a species level.
There you go. That's kind of brilliant, actually.
And it's sad that I would compare the human species to cockroaches, but I mean, that's the easiest comparison that I could think of.
It's super accurate.
We consume.
What would you put in your bug out bag?
And
You looked at me, you were like, oh, shit.
well, that's the thing. As far as a bug out bag is concerned, it's good to have one. But I'm going to be honest, is if that scenario hits me, I'm most likely not going to be prepared in that sense. I'm going to have the wherewithal to know how to survive, basically trying to make my way to wherever I'm making my way to by various means of, looting and pillaging. But, I mean, my concern at that point is just to get out, and it's not about what happens after that. What happens after that happens after that, and that could very well be my undoing. But, it's flight or fight. If
Like, I have a bug out bag, but a lot of it's you have to change your food up periodically because it does expire.
It does expire. I mean, I don't know. I'd probably have like something. If I was to make a bug out bag, it'd be literally revolve around things, probably around like medical supplies and in implements of hunting and destruction.
My biggest concern is water. So I have a water straw. I have like iodine tablets, stuff like that. Like living here in the desert, of course, food's going to be scarce, but being thirsty is going to kill you first. Mm-hmm. That's just that, or somebody else trying to steal what you have.
Right.
Like the water straw that I have, I forget what the ratings are, but I could go up to Reed Park right here and drink out of it. But there's only so many times you can do that.
Exactly. And if you ever decide to, let me know. I'll film that.
Out of a latrine.
Drink the green water. It's fine.
It's on a dare. It's on a dare. That makes it okay. It's on a dare.
Never mind the ducks laughing at you.
Oh, they would be laughing at me.
Man, we shit in that.
You're gonna have a sore throat tomorrow.
Hey, Herb, you gotta check this out. Look what this guy's doing.
All right, brother. Well, thanks for recording with me again, man.
Oh, thanks for having me back on the show.
This has been
always fun.
This has been Rufus the Villain with no real topic. So I hope you guys enjoyed.
Take care out there, everybody.